Let's start Follow the HR Leader, our Smartcast for April 16th. Here's our agenda. We're going to be covering a real brief definition of what leadership is. It's one of those words we hear a lot about, but it doesn't always have a common meaning. So we're going to try and give it some common meaning, even though there's still a couple of different forms of that. Meaning transactional and transformational leadership. But there's a lot that falls under each one of those, and we'll talk about that. Then we're going to talk about something that's a little bit more controversial, at least in leadership stuff, and that's leadership traits versus leadership behaviors. There are two schools of thought, and I'm sure that amongst the audience that we have here this morning, there's some of you that are going to take one school, and some of you are going to take another school of thought on this. And they're probably both right. It's just that they both can be debated. But we're going to talk about that because it's important to know kind of how your management, your senior management, if you're not the senior manager, how they think about these issues. And by defining what they are, you'll get a great picture of kind of how your management thinks. And if you are the manager, well, then you're going to recognize that you're one or two of these people in terms of style and what that could mean, what we can do with that. We're going to look at Type A and Type B management. That one you probably remember from college. But it's worth taking a look at again because when you look at companies, a lot of companies are certainly not managing around those issues. We'll look at Type X and Type Y management styles as well, 4 letters. A kind of a weird term if you've never heard of it before, but there was a guy named Machiavellian, and it's something that you probably have a few of these people in your company. And what we're going to do is we're going to describe what those people are like because you want to identify them if they're a Machiavellian type of a person, because we're going to talk about what that means for your company and for the efficient running of your firm. Ultimately, what we're really looking for here is a discussion on how to make you more effective, make your managers more effective so that your company can grow. And the last point here is leader-follower postulate, which is just one of those academic terms, but it'll make a lot of sense when we get to it. So why don't we get going on things? So what is leadership? Well, we could probably take a knife and cut it into 2 halves, one being transactional leadership. This is probably the most common one that's out there. Most of the time when you go to work for a company, and if some of you are thinking of changing jobs and you're looking at a firm, the one that's probably going to turn on the person you're talking or is going to hire you is your ability to talk about transformational leadership, not transactional leadership. Most leaders are transactional. The rarity is the transformational leader. But here's what transactional leadership's all about. And we've all seen this before, micromanagement versus macromanagement. A transactional leader is a person who manages, and I use the word manage, not lead here, because it really is managing that we're talking about here. They call it leadership, but it's really management. Now, micromanagement is something we probably all of us have worked with somebody, or heaven forbid, under somebody who has been a micromanager, and we all know what that's like. Very tight control, very critical on minor issues, and you really don't have an opportunity, if you're the employee, to kind of put your stamp of, I've learned this stuff, I know how to do this, and I want to make it my thing. Now, that doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. It just it means giving some autonomy to the employee. Now, from a manager as an HR person, you do not want to be a micromanager of your managers, of the people that you work with, because you'll become a pariah. Managers also don't like to work with micromanagers. So micromanagement is kind of a bad thing. Now, you do have to maintain control. Control is very important, but there are ways to do that, which we're going to talk about here, without being a micromanager. So think of yourself as not being a micromanager, but and kind of look at inside yourself and say, well, I really need to be a macro manager. So here's the difference. I live in the Milwaukee area, and if I were to tell my staff, let's all go to Chicago, The micromanager would say, you're going to go to Chicago, you're going to take a bus, we'll give them a break. You're going to take the Amtrak, this is a little bit nicer. You'll take the Amtrak to Hiawatha down to Chicago. You will go at this time. We will meet at this place, and everything will be laid out. Everything is absolutely scheduled. Now, that works, but day after day of having everything laid out where there's really no room for discretionary choice or discretionary management of the employee, that gets old. So here's a better way, something I'd like to put out there for you, and that is the macro manager is going to say, let's go to Chicago. Let's be there at 10 o'clock, and we'll all meet at, the Sears Tower. Okay, that's it. I don't care how you get there. I don't care what time you leave. Just make sure you get there and meet us at 10 o'clock. The detail part of how to do your job is taken